Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the special city council meeting. We'll call this meeting to order. Today is Friday, December 20th, 2019, 8:15 a.m. Thank you for those who got up early enough to listen to it at home and all those who are in the audience today. This is a special meeting because of the Christmas holidays, and it's an anomaly that we hold it at this early in the morning, but to take care of city business before the end of the year, we've decided as a consensus of the council, this would be the appropriate time in which to hold the meeting. So Pam, would you please take the roll call?
Caribou.
Present.
Friedlieb. Paulson.
Here.
Ditch.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Baranzelli.
Here, would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll move to item 4, the public forum. Does anybody in the audience like to speak before the council today? This is your opportunity to come and address your concerns, comments, or questions. Seeing none, we will deviate from the council agenda. We have a guest here with respect to one of the items on the agenda, which is the very last item on the agenda under building and grounds. So we'll move to that item. And if you all refer to item 9.11 under the building and grounds agenda, it is a request to approve the lease agreement between the City of Virginia and the State of Minnesota for the air quality monitoring equipment. And Britt, could you just give a brief synopsis of that? We have a representative here from the state with respect to that. Thank you.
Yes, we currently already have air monitoring equipment on our city hall roof. We've had it there for quite some time, 20 years or so.
Yes, I don't know the exact date.
Yeah.
Good morning. My name is Lad Struck, and I'm with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency.
Good morning.
What I'm here today is to discuss a lease. So, as Britt mentioned, for many, many years we've conducted monitoring of ambient air quality. Part of the job my agency does. One of the things I want to address with this is I don't think we have any sort of formal agreement. At the time that the equipment would have been set up, it might have been a handshake and a verbal discussion. So make sure that everybody's in agreement of what we're doing. One of the things we're requesting with this lease is a small space within, I guess, a storage room just located behind the chamber here near access to the roof to locate some equipment that does continuous analysis of gas samples.
And is this air quality equipment that was installed 20 years ago still operating efficiently?
Yes, we have an operator, Tim Satrain, who's on site maybe every 6 days. I'm located out of our Duluth office. Yes, it's changed over time, but currently the instrumentation we have is located on the roof and measures particulates.
Thank you. Very good. Thank you very much. Any questions, comments from the council? You have an opportunity to take a look at the lease agreement that's in your packet. Does anybody have any questions with respect to that? So I would look for a motion to move forward with the lease agreement between the City of Virginia and the MPCA for the monitoring of the air quality in the City of Virginia. It's an ongoing system that's been in place for many years. We're just formalizing the agreement in written form. Anyone? Councilor Friedlieb?
Well, I just want to, since it's been going on for 20 years,
Probably more than that. I don't know the exact date. I know I had communication with Britt with whatever the start date was, and I'm not recalling, but go ahead.
and so what information has been elicited? I mean, do we have good air quality and this relative to this building alone, or are we talking the entire city of Virginia? How is it affected by the power plant, I would ask, if that's something that you would know?
Yep, good question. So I've served multiple roles at the state. My current role and what this equipment does is monitor ambient air quality. So give a indication as to the standard of which the air meets to kind of inform sensitive populations, so maybe the sick or the elderly, young, and basically we present this information with an ambient air quality index. You may be familiar with something called the AQI. Generally, values below 50 are considered to be good air quality. By and large, the northern portion of the state of Minnesota experiences great air quality. This is simply one of our, we must have 12 sites in northern Minnesota, up from the border, and maybe considering mid-state somewhere near Mille Lacs. Just spatially organized to best get good resolution. This is not intended to look at any specific industry or characteristics of any source pollution. It's simply a measurement of ambient air quality.
And over the course of the past 20 years, it has been adequate in Virginia? Because interestingly, there was just some informal conversation amongst people the other day with regard to black dust that they recognize as potentially coming from the Mintac plant or Eveleth plant. There's also dust that's been observed in the city that they think is coming from the power plant in town. And so the testing that's being done with the equipment that's being utilized is not indicating any kind of pollutants that are occurring within our city or messing up our air in any obvious way.
It's a good question. I can't speak directly to any particular findings in the sense of giving it excellent, community air health, anything to that point. What we use this data for is to measure against national ambient air quality standards. Those standards are laid out as far as an average over a 24-hour period. What we currently measure are particulates in a varying size.
So each week, Tim comes in, reads the analysis, and provides that information to you.
What he's maintaining is two types of instrumentation currently. One is a filter-based method, which the filters are both collected and shipped off to our laboratory, and then he'll set those back up for the coming week. We measure on a 6-day period with those, so we're hopefully capturing, and this is organized by the federal EPA, this calendar, capturing events that aren't based on a 7-day period.
And essentially, the utilization of this equipment, and no news is good news.
Mostly, yeah. This information is available. We do make our information available to the public on our website, and it's used by any public entity or other portions of the state to evaluate health and the health of our air. Yes, measurements are used to inform the public if there are ever extreme events. Often the spikes we may see are related to wildfire events that may not even be local, meaning the state. Often our highest numbers and values are picked up on an annual basis during the summertime with western wildfires.
I would so move that we proceed with the continuation of the lease agreement with the MPCA and the air quality testing.
Thank you.
Has been.
Thank you. Moved by Counselor Freely. Is there support? Support. Support by Counselor Johnson. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Baraboo.
Yeah, just a quick question for you. The public utilities has a whole separate monitoring for theirs, correct?
My understanding, and I have some knowledge of this from a prior role, the utility is required through an air quality permit they have to conduct testing on a given schedule of various pollutants and various sources. My understanding is they have multiple potential emission points from the facility. They may conduct ongoing monitoring for particular pollutants with permanent instrumentation they may have.
But that's
yeah,
separate from this one.
This is unrelated.
Okay, does this one measure the pollen density too, or not?
We're not specifically looking at pollen. Pollen may be counted as a portion of particulate,
Okay.
but not in particular.
Thank you. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Morning. Thank you very much.
Yep. Have a safe trip back wherever you have to go.
I'll actually be on the roof for about another hour. So.
All right, perfect. Okay. Okay, we'll move to item 5, the consent agenda. The following items will be enacted by one motion unless a counselor or a citizen of the City of Virginia requests that the item be considered separately. Item 5.1 is the approval and the correction of the minutes of the regular meeting that was held on December 10th, 2019, the public hearing that was held on December 10th, 2019, and the special meeting that was held on December 17th, 2019. Item 5.2, approve payment of accounts payable for the second half of December 2019. 5.3, approve the sale of surplus equipment. Item 5.4, approve the temporary liquor permit 5.4A for the Lyric Center for January 10th, 2020, and 5.4B, Friends of the Greenhouse for January 25th, 2020. Item 5.5, approve the exempt permit for Whitetails Unlimited to conduct a raffle at the Virginia Elks Lodge on March 7th, 2020. Item 5.6, approve the following travel requests. For the Police Department, 5.6A, Jesse Holacek and Jason Picard winning the battle seminar on January 10th, 2020 in Duluth at a cost of $84.60 each. Item 5.6B, Catherine Kroll, police officer, crisis intervention, January 6th through the 7th, 2020 at the Fond du Lac College in Cloquet at a cost of $392. And finally, item 5.6C, Engineering Department, Bill Cole and Christina Nicola to attend the ICC Upper Great Plains Region 3 meeting February 2nd through the 7th, 2020 in Chaska, Minnesota at a cost of $1,866.52 each. This is a consent agenda that is been proposed for this council meeting. What is the council's pleasure, and do I have a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Councilor Paulson moves to approve the consent agenda, and it's supported by Councilor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 6, appearances. Once again, anybody in the audience that would like to speak before the council has the opportunity to come. We have no one scheduled today. Seeing none, we move to item 7, unfinished business. It is item 7.1, approve the second reading of the purchase agreement between the Joint Powers Board of Independent School District Number 706 and the City of Virginia. This is the second reading of the property purchase for the new school.
Also move the second reading of the agreement.
Councilor Bearable moves to approve the second reading of the agreement between the Virginia City and Independent School District Number 706 for the purchase of property up in the White Cedar Drive area. Is there support? Support by Councilor Friedlieb. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 8, discussion items. Adopt a resolution for donation to the teen center. Just to clarify, this is a donation to this teen center, not the donation of the teen center. Is that correct? Okay, and in your packet, could you please quickly give the public a synopsis of that, what that is? What are we donating?
AT&T provides funding, or they have their company where they provide funding to, obviously, the teen center. So it was, I think, $4 for each check. We've got a few of them. So
Oh,
we're
I see.
just doing like one annual resolution.
Okay, so the donation on the monthly basis from the AT&T is a one-time motion to accept the donation on behalf of the teen center. Very good, thank you. Is there a motion? Moved by Councilor Friedlieb. Is there support? Support by Councilor Paulson. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Counselor Barnzelli.
Mayor, forgive me, but where is the teen center located? Is it still on
Right next door to the Lyric Center.
next door? To the west, it's that last building?
And I think some of us feel, and there's been some discussion about maybe the Lyric Center could expand at some later time with respect to that, but the teen center is still located there, right next door to the Lyric
It
Center.
was always there.
Counselor Johnson.
Thank you.
If I might clarify, the teen center hasn't been active in several years. There's, at this time, with the ability to staff volunteers, there's just, and then the needs, there's just not, it exists on paper at this point only. There's still an active board. We're in the process of dissolving the teen center as an organization simply because at this time, there hasn't been any interest in it, and I know the Y is looking at creating as something that would replace that. So it exists on paper, and the services the Lyric provide through their small parts players kind of filling that need with younger folks.
Well, I used to go to that building and just walk in there years ago, but I haven't seen any activity for, I don't know, last summer. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Moved and supported to accept the donation on behalf of the teen center. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, motion carries. Item 8.2, adopt a resolution proceeding with the recommendation identified from the Fire Department Service Planning Committee. You have some information in your packet, the resolution, and as you take a quick look at it, just briefly, there was some discussion about that with Mayor Skalko last night at the Rams annual dinner, and he's really excited about this collaborative and moving forward. And I think it was for the two communities and for those who sit on that committee, our city administrator Britzi Bennis and our city councilor Maya Beyondich, for helping facilitate this moving forward. So this is exciting for us to come up with a collaborative with potential for consolidation of the two departments. So do I have a motion to adopt the resolution?
I'll make that motion.
Moved by Councilor Beyondich to adopt the resolution. Is there support?
I'll support.
Support by Councilor Bearable. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Paulson.
I just wanted to congratulate both communities for coming together and this plan and this following the recommendations. So good job on that.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Paulson. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. 8.3, adopt a resolution authorizing the application of a fire department service planning grant with the state of Minnesota. And that grant is for?
It'll help us with our next steps with the fire consolidation, working on legalities and other.
Very good. Thank you.
Also move the resolution.
Resolution moved by Councilor Bearable for approval and moving forward. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Councilor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none.
Mayor?
Oh, I'm sorry. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you. At the bottom of the resolution, it says, "Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Mountain Iron, Minnesota."
Yeah, that's
We'll
been,
change that.
that has to
Thank you.
change, yeah. Yep. It's been identified. Thank you very much, Councilor Johnson. Because they have to do the same thing, right? So I think it's a mirror resolution.
Mountain Iron passed theirs on Monday.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And the last item under discussion items is item 8.4, which is the authorizing city staff to proceed with the hospital lease revenue bond in 2020 and engage Northland Securities to act as the underwriter for this bond. There's some significant discussion in a meeting earlier with the Essentia, and the decision on the part of the council brought to this meeting was to move forward with this hospital lease revenue bond in the amount of $10 million and to use Northland Securities to act as the underwriter for this. Is there a motion or question or comment from the council? Councilor Bearable.
Yeah, I think, Mayor and fellow councilors, this is too premature right now to do this. There was some issues that came up yesterday. There's been unexpected reimbursement issues through the federal government and health programs that are going to greatly affect the Essentia Health in the future. I think we need to direct Britt to have a session with the administration of Essentia, and unfortunately, I can't say any more of this because of confidentialities, but Britt can find out what it is, and it's going to be huge amounts of money, so that's why they cannot afford to pay for some of the things that we're looking at, and this will put them in a detrimental position at this point. So I would like to table this until Britt gets a chance to talk to them some more.
Okay, thank you. I just have a quick comment, just to let everybody know, last night at the Rams dinner, I had an opportunity to make some discussions with respect to a variety of people that were there, and there was a report that, and this is not verified by Essentia, but according to the city of Chisholm representatives, that Essentia is expanding their clinic over there and adding additional providers in Chisholm. So if this is an issue for them, by expanding their services in the city of Chisholm, and I think, this is an ongoing issue with respect to that. That's an issue that they have to resolve. Our goal and objective is to put this off-center. And with all due respect to Councilor Bearable, I think we have to move the ball off-center. Let's get them to make a decision with respect to this.
Mayor, this
and
is-
let me finish, please.
Okay.
And so I think we should be moving forward with this, okay? Did you want to retort there, Councilor
Yeah, I
Bearable?
do. Mayor, this has nothing to do with the Chisholm potential in the future. I knew about that a long time ago, that they might be doing this, but there's nothing in concrete, nothing. And this came from an individual that's on our county commission. At this point, I think we're doing this premature. We stand a chance of losing Essentia Health if we don't let Britt do some more investigation, because the amount of changes with federal reimbursements are going to be very detrimental. So please, let us do this. Another month won't hurt, or into next year to do this. And if she finds out information that's pertinent, I don't have a problem in next month in looking at this. But right now I do, so I can't vote for that.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Bearable. Councilor Freely.
We're kind of at the point where, like, then at the end of this month, we will have somebody occupying our hospital building without having to pay any rent per se, which is somewhat distressing, given the fact that we could utilize that money. But I'm not sure either, that we aren't premature in moving forward with this bond. To me, it almost feels as though we're forcing the hand of our current lessees to continue that lease, despite what they came to request of us recently. So I guess I'd turn to Britt to say, are you confident that this is timely for us to do this at this point, or can we buy some time between then and now? My concern is that by January 1st, we will have occupants in our hospital not paying the city anything to be there. Granted, they're providing us a significant service in the community, but like Sherry Erickson told us the other day, it's also about a $12 million asset to the city that they're utilizing within the city. And then they would be doing so without paying any rent per se or lease payments. That's distressing to me. I don't know that this, though, is gonna remedy that in any timely fashion. But I think maybe the longer we wait, the longer we would be without that lease payment. That's my concern. So I'm a little torn in terms of like what we're trying to accomplish, which is to certainly keep a leasee in that building, providing that medical service to the community. But I'm still not quite convinced that this is the immediate route we need to take. So I'm just kind of turning to you to tell me if you're confident that this is the route that we need to take, or is it putting us in jeopardy to some degree with that leasee continuing that lease in that building?
The reason I suggested it was twofold. One was because the lease specifically states that if they don't ask for the bond, we have to. So that was number one, why I suggested we do that, so that we are not breach of lease, that we are doing what we are required to as part of the lease. And number two is kind of I did suggest we do that as kind of a timeline for all of us, that we have to make a decision, Essentia has to make a decision, all of us have to make a decision by the last meeting in February. What are we doing? And it kind of kicks us into gear and to what we're doing. That is why I suggested it.
Mayor, can I retort to that? We sat in this room next door, all 7 of us, and we agreed in there, basically without actually formally going to it, that we would unload our hospital for $1. And I believe it's not very pertinent that we don't, and Steve, you're shaking your head, but we did agree to that. We didn't vote on it, but we did agree to it through the conversation we had with the Essentia. I don't care what anybody says, I didn't hear a no in that room when I sat there. But if you folks want to jeopardize healthcare in Virginia, Minnesota, go ahead and do this without some further research, and I'm serious about this. And I can't say any more at this point in time because I've been sworn to confidentiality. So if you want to find out, have Britt set up times with the Essentia people one-on-one, and you can find out exactly what it is.
Okay.
And I just can't vote for this right now because I think it's very detrimental to our healthcare system because of what's happening. It has nothing to do locally. It has to do with what's happening at the federal level with reimbursements.
If that was the case, then they should have called us, right? They knew we were voting on this, so I have a lot of things to say, but.
Oh, they didn't know
let's
we were
move
voting
forward.
on this today, Larry. They did not know, unless when I left a little bit early, you guys pushed this forward. And if that's, I don't know whether it was pushed forward or not, because I had to leave a little early at that last meeting.
Did talk to the Administrator Sam Stone after the meeting.
But I don't believe Sam knew this until the meeting yesterday, and unfortunately, our representative was not there yesterday. So she's not privy yet to the information that was given out at that meeting.
Thank you, Councilor Bearable. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I'm not quite sure what Councilor Bearable is referring to, a meeting, because I don't remember ever being in a meeting. I mean, of all of us councilors at a meeting.
Go ahead, please continue.
I don't
Yeah, please continue.
remember ever saying that I would acquiesce or that the city should acquiesce to give that essentially the building for $1. I guess I'd have to have my memory refreshed if that's the case, but I do not recall that. And I just would like to take this back into a contractual discussion. And after being advised by our attorney, Tom Budarak, our city attorney, that that is the language in the contract. And this is, in fact, for infrastructure. And I feel that it is prudent to follow the contract language to maintain the infrastructure. That is, in fact, what this bonding, the $10 million bonding requirement stated in the contract. We are, again, at the 11th hour. We've asked over 2 years to have discussion come to the table. Over that 2-year timeframe, we really haven't had much conversation other than the meeting we just had at the beginning of this week. And with that meeting, I'm not sure how much I can state, but out of that meeting, there wasn't really any plan put forward from Essentia. So without a plan in place, I feel that it is prudent to follow the language in the contract, and that the city would not be in breach then if we go out and do the bond. So I'm in favor of going forward. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Paulson. Councilor Johnson.
I too do not recall a meeting in which I agreed to give away that building for $1. And I'm really trying to rack my brain, and I really don't recall that. The other part where I come from is we need to look out for the city and the city's interests. Essentia is a business that has a lot more people working for it and who are very specific experts when it comes to property acquisition and contracts and all kinds of stuff. And I think it's our duty to move forward with what the affiliation agreement says with the $10 million bond and move forward. As Britt stated in the, I believe in the open part of the meeting on Tuesday, that at any point, we can say, oh, that's okay, we're done. But I think we need to start the process now so that we do have some timeline and some consideration. I also, quite honestly, am very uncomfortable that I don't have information that's that detrimental to this contract and the information. If it's really that important and that we have to make a decision based on that, I need that information. And if I can't have that information, I need to make the information based on what I do have from the meeting on Tuesday with Essentia and with the meeting we had as a council with our administration and our legal counsel. So until that information is able to be presented and the public can have that information, we need to move forward with the bonding and with figuring out what's going to happen. So I will be definitely supporting this.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Johnson. Counselor Beyondich.
Thank you. I don't recall us taking a vote on, we did take a vote?
I never said that. I said we
Okay.
agreed in principle to do that in that meeting.
Okay,
Yes,
and
please continue.
I did feel uncomfortable making this big of a decision without all the information. And part of that information is having an open dialogue like we did the other day, but that's the first and only time we've had open dialogue. I feel pressured, and not saying that I wouldn't, I'm kind of stuck until I have more information. I do not want to see Essentia leave. I believe they employ a lot of people in our area. But it's hard when information doesn't come back to the entire council for us to make an informed decision. And that's the hard part. And we're here right before the January 1st. And now we're feeling pressured, I'm feeling pressured to make a decision. And I just feel like we need all the information to make these decisions. And talking with them was great. Getting their ideas was great. And I applaud that. I wish we had more of that before this time period came up. So I'm kind of stuck. I want Essentia to be here. They employ people. I just wish we had all the information before we make these decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. I just like to make a quick comment. Looking at the future of our healthcare and looking at what we've done with Essentia, the agreements we've had, the history of Essentia providing the medical care at the hospital, we understand all that. I'm a little concerned, with all due respect, Councilor Bearable, about the fact that you have privy to some private information that we don't have privy to. And now we have to make decisions. Let me finish, please. And then we have to make decisions based upon information we don't have before us. Now, I'm not doubting the fact that there's some issues there, but we don't know that information. And you being privy to private information that you can't dispense to the city council makes it difficult for me to, understand the seriousness of the delay, number one. Number two is that when we talk about the hospital lease agreement, we had the opportunity, and Essentia had the opportunity, to come up with some kind of an agreement. They've already indicated they didn't want to do the $10 million bond. We said, well, what's the alternative? We offered a few things. We never got any offer back from Essentia about what we're going to be doing. We could have had a gap agreement, which I talked about that last Tuesday, about having a gap agreement to enter in this conversation about not issuing the bond until we discuss this and have a gap agreement. Apparently, that wasn't something that was voted upon at the Tuesday meeting, and I understand that. So now we're at the point where there was a motion and support to move forward with the hospital revenue bond for 2020 and engage, Northland Securities as the underwriter. Now, we can continue to move forward with that process, and if information comes to us that would be pertinent enough for us to stop this process and it's in the benefit of the city, the best interest of the city for healthcare provision, I guess I can consider that. But right now, we're trying to make a path moving forward. And if we pass this moving forward, essentially, if they don't want this done, they'll have to come back with some kind of agreement, whether it's a gap agreement for a period of time until such time as we do this. But I don't think that we should be sitting on the ball again. We have to move forward in some respect, whether you wait a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, who knows when this, if this is a serious enough event for federal funding, what's 30 days going to change that decision? What's 60 days going to change? We don't know that. So, I mean, I have to go based upon what I think is the proper path moving forward. That path can always change or stop, or a new path can be created during the course of our discussions with Essentia, but at the same time, we're at the end of the lease agreement. We have no lease. We have no payments being made. And so if it's a 60-day period where they're not paying January and February lease, and then we come up with a bond and we move forward with that, if they can come up with some kind of an agreement that would delay that would, for 6 months or a year or whatever, some kind of a gap agreement where they pay a portion of a bond payment or a lease payment for every month until we get this accomplished, I can understand that, but that didn't happen either. So we have to make a decision somewhere moving forward. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. So Councilor Freely first.
I do recall during the conversation that we had with Essentia the other day that Tom Budarak indicated and alluded that there was conversation within some committee where it was talked about the potential for a dollar exchange for that building. But again, he said that that would be up to the city council. It wasn't something that was agreed upon. But that was something that was suggested and mentioned during that conversation.
And I was in that conversation during that one meeting, and there was a lot of contingencies with respect to that.
Right, and then the other thing was, I think we made it clear to Essentia at the meeting the other day that we can't provide an operational facility to them for free, essentially. And we talked about the $600,000 depreciation costs per, and the gap agreement would be, can you provide us a monthly allotment to cover that cost? And they could not, would not, should not do that because of whatever financial intricacies were involved with regard to that. So that was off the table. And so that brought us to the point then, what can we put on the table? And I think that's why we move forward with the suggestion that we have to continue the bond. So that's where we're at. And you did leave a little bit early from that meeting, Charlie, but we gave them the option to provide us a gap agreement for the $600,000 depreciation, which was not going to happen. We let them know that this is a valuable facility for the city to have availed to them for operations, and that we need them to provide payment for that to the city. And so the bottom line was the only way to move forward with that was with this authorization for the revenue bond, which, again, I'm a little bit concerned about that we're pressing to a point where, you know, the potential does exist for them to pull out. I think minimally, because I've been told that this is a viable, valuable market for them. And so the potential for that is, I think, minimal. But I also feel that we might be prematurely forcing their hand to some degree if we know for a fact that they're not interested in this way of doing things, paying that bond again for another $10 million. So, but we have to do something. And I think this might be what needs to be done at this point, because we're going to get nothing for it within 2 weeks. But I don't know how long this process takes for us.
About 2 months, it'll be the second council meeting in
days.
February.
So I mean, a couple months without a lease payment, then I guess I could live with. But to have no agreement and to move forward with nothing, that's just going to prolong that time frame by which we're not going to be availed anything for what we're providing to them. I guess I would have to support moving forward with this, even though there are some risks involved with that, I guess.
Okay, and before we go to Councilor Bearable and the other two councilors, the issue is sitting on that lease agreement, knowing that there's an unwind potentially for Essentia or for the city in which to move forward with the unwinding of this agreement. That's in the affiliation agreement. But we knew, and the Essentia knew, that this $10 million bond was coming up. We sent them information. Our city administrator and city attorney sent them, this $10 million bond is coming up. And there was lots of discussion about that $10 million bond, which they were reluctant to move forward with. Asked Essentia for another option. We received no options from them. Now we're here. We all feel pressured. I don't feel pressured because, opportunities were there. Those doors were closed, at least temporarily, not locked, but closed. And now we're here. We have to make a decision doing something. And so by moving forward with this may trigger a more substantive discussion from Essentia about an optional payment or something until this can be resolved. That didn't happen at this last meeting either. And that was the purpose of asking for the gap agreement. It appears there was no interest in that at this point in time, although Tam, the East Regional Director, said, she was not her head, maybe that was possible. We haven't heard anything from them. So, I can't see not doing anything. I can't see without specific factual information. I try to deal with the facts, factual basis, because the facts and evidence indicate how I decide to move forward. And the facts and evidence clearly indicate, after all these discussions, there hasn't been any moving off the ball. This is an option we have under the lease, and we were doing our fiduciary responsibility in order to move forward. That's the way I look at it right now. Councilor Bearable.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree totally that on this bond issue, we're not forced to put this out there. Plus, the fact that this agreement does not end until January 13th, 2020, because that's when it was initially signed for 7 years. Yes, it is. Go look at the date that initial agreement was signed and approved on there. But Essentia has already put in $29 million into this facility with the bond and the money they put in for upgrades and everything else. So in my book, they've already paid for that hospital. With what they do, it's almost like a lease to purchase agreement in my book. But if you can't wait 2 weeks to have Britt find out more information for you, I believe personally that this will be totally detrimental to the city of Virginia with healthcare. So why didn't you give her 2 weeks to get this figured out and go into January? Because look at that date on that. I just went back and looked at when that agreement was signed. It was the 13th of January 2013 is when it was signed. So, I wished I could say more, but I can't. But you need to educate yourselves and find out what it is. Talk to the commission members that are on that board and see what they can tell you. Because there's a lot of stuff that's happening that I can't tell you. I just can't, because I sworn. But they came in here the other day expecting that we were going to give them the hospital for $1. That I can tell you from what their members told me afterwards. And then we backdoored them because of what we had promised in that room, that we would look at selling it to them for $1 and let them take over all the responsibility, get rid of our depreciation, if that happens, all that stuff. But they've put all this money in there already. What do we expect to take money out of a turnip that maybe cannot afford it at this point in time to keep the healthcare here? Find out more information. That's all I'm asking. Delay it. So Britt has a chance to talk to their upper administration on this issue. I'm not going to say any more, but I'm not voting.
So, Councilor Bearable, ironically, in my past profession, I deal with, a lot of confidential matters, investigative matters, and those kind of things. And when information is disseminated with respect to an investigation or information on a private thing, the information stays private. For you to have access to that information and not being able to share that information with the rest of the city council is concerning to me. So if that comes out from some of the commissioners, by them saying that to something outside of the commission meeting, that should be open dialogue and available for anybody to hear and see. And if that's the case, and you were privy to the information, then we should all be privy to information too through Essentia Health. But that's a moot point at this period in time.
No, it's not, Mayor. It is not a moot point.
Let me
I'm gonna ar-
finish.
And I'm going to
Let me
argue with
finish,
you.
please.
No
Let me
commissioner
finish.
violated their confidentiality.
Let me finish first. You're welcome to retort, disagree, whatever you want, but just please let me finish, okay? So looking at that perspective, selling the hospital for $1, there was discussion about that at prior meeting, but there was a lot of codicils and a lot of attached to that. By selling the hospital for $1, there was to be some assurances that that Essentia would put into place that they would build a new hospital within, I'm not saying the time frame, but say 5 to 7 years, that they would ensure that they would be a facility that's going to provide emergency care, all this kind of thing. That was all part of the suggestion that we sell it for $1, and that came from our city attorney as well. But there was no discussion any further about that. There was no commitment on the part of Essentia. There was nothing in writing to say that if we turn them over for $1, that they would abide by these. There's no agreement. There's nothing there. So for me to turn it over for $1 under that scenario, I wouldn't have any problem doing that. I know the investment. I think we all know the investment that Essentia made into this. A lot of money. Whether it's $29 million, I don't know what it is, but I don't dispute the fact that they put that much money in. But what I do look at is what is the agreement that we want to move forward with. So the issue for me is the health care. The issue for me is providing proper health care to this, and we have a responsibility. So I would support the sale of the hospital $1 if there's conditions are met with respect to being able to get some assurances that they were going to provide that. And they told us that they're not able to give those assurances. So that selling it for $1 and letting them take over the hospital, what happens? We have no control. There are no safety mechanisms in place. They could just do whatever they want. Yes, as Councillor Johnson aptly put, that yes, they're a private business. We can't, interfere with their private business, but we can certainly lay forth the property that we own in the lease agreement moving forward in order for them to continue with their private business and operate any way they can in exchange for the dollar fee, that they have some type of a plan moving forward in agreement, and a commitment to do that. Otherwise, we have no assurances. And so that's kind of where I'm looking at it too. So Councillor Berber, did you want to respond?
Yes, I do, Mayor. Think about it this way, okay? They've been putting all that money in to pay off our bond in the last 7 years. What would have happened if they didn't do that? Where would we be? Our taxpayers would be on the hook for that money. Figure it out, $17 million divided by 7. It's over $2 million a year in dollars that would have had to been paid by our taxpayers in a special debt levy that we would have had to have done, because the city didn't have that kind of money to pay those debts off. Now that hospital is free and clear. So what does it hurt to wait? Let Britt try to set up something so each of you counselors can be privy. And I was not breaking any confidentiality with any of the commission members. I was told exact in these words. Essentia Health has an unexpected reduction in reimbursement issues due to the federal government healthcare changes. That's what I was told. That was not breaking confidentiality because they did not tell me dollars or what was going on, except it was a huge amount. So that's where it sits. But I believe you can all find that information out if Britt sets it up correctly so it stays confidential, because they do not, I believe, want it out in the public air at this point in time. That's all I'm asking you to do. Just wait to, you've got until January 13th, and we'll have a meeting before then to act on this bond if we have to. That's all I'm asking.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Berber. I think Councillor Beyondich, Councillor Johnson first, and Councillor Beyondich, and then on to Councillor Paulson. Thank you. Councillor Johnson.
So I'm going to start with your last statement, Councillor Baraboo. It is not up to the city to find information. It is not up to Britt to set up meetings correctly. If Essentia has information that we are supposed to have that helps us to make a decision, they need to approach us. They need to tell us. It is not up to us to go digging around to find all kinds of little things and that, this and that. That is just so frustrating. Again, as the mayor said, they're a private business. What I've learned sitting in this chair is that as we are going to be leasing 118 to a private individual, that private individual is responsible for the build-out within the building as leased. That's part of the thing. And that would seem to me that any money that Essentia has put into the hospital because of the lease, separate from the bonding that we did, that's their money. They chose to do that. There was never, if they wanted to have that count against the bond, they should have made those legal arrangements ahead of time and not looking backwards. My concern is about the city, and my concern is about the affiliation agreement. I really don't care about Essentia's business model and their profit and loss. Yes, I do care about healthcare in Virginia. There are other healthcare providers in Virginia. We will not be a healthcare desert should Essentia leave. I'm not saying someone's going to come in and take over the hospital. I can't predict the future. If you can predict the future, please lay it out so that I can see. But at this time, I'm going to go back to the contract and what it says, and if you can show me exactly where it says that we may as opposed to shall, all those little words they throw in there to make it interpretable, I'm fine with that, but at this point, I want to start the process of issuing the bonds so that we're not scrambling next year to issue the bonds. Again, 2 months is 2 months, 2 weeks in that. I don't think that nothing's going to happen over the next 2 weeks anyway. Everybody's closed and on vacation, and so let's start the process and just get moving on this to get it in a direction where everybody knows what the outcome is going to be. But again, I cannot reiterate enough, I need to care more about the city and where we are and where our contractual stuff is than what may or may not have been said about Essentia's financial, federal, whatever. That's just irrelevant at this point. Yeah, it truly is something, and with all due respect, Councilor Baraboo, if it was that important that someone had to tell you last night, they should be here this morning talking to us and telling us that this morning. Everybody knew about that meeting. It's been legally posted for 3 days. This is not a surprise. That is what they need to do. And if they can't tell us all in a group, then it's information I don't want. I want the information that I get to be public information so that everybody knows what I'm basing my decisions on, not on some commission, something secret meeting stuff. It's super frustrating, and I have to agree with the mayor that you got that information and none of us did is very frustrating.
Quick question, Britt, if I may, before we move on. Thank you. This House Police Revenue Bond to engage Northland Securities Act, that's the underwriter. For them to start the process moving forward, we have to approve that anyway. So how long would it take them if we did approve this tonight or to this morning? Would it take more than 2 weeks?
Fine if we waited till the 13th, if we wanted to wait till the 13th. It just puts us back one meeting. So we'd be looking at the 1st of March rather than.
Okay, so a motion
Council decides to
could be made
extend it.
to authorize this now, effective January 13th.
Good.
That's
Like I mentioned when we first talked about bonding, is that there's going to be at least 3 more meetings that we're going to be talking about the bond
Right.
before we actually go to sale.
that
So at any point
is,
of those times, we could say, nope, we don't want to do this, we can stop.
so we can approve it, and you can still stop it 2
any
weeks down the
time.
road or whatever. Thank you very much. Okay, Counselor Beyondich.
Good morning. So for my peace of mind, I want to make sure if this is voted on today, that we can back out at any time, providing we come to an agreement.
Absolutely. There'll be at least 3 resolutions we have to pass before the bond sale.
Okay. And it is frustrating to sit here and not have all of our information And this is a huge issue for the city of Virginia. Nobody wants to see this go away. We want to work together. We want to make it work. So it is a little frustrating when we don't have the information that we need to make this kind of an informed decision. But I also feel comfortable that we can back out and say, no, we don't, to the bond. That gives a little assurance that if things come together, that would go away. Correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Counselor Beyondich. Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going through the lease agreement and the amendments, and I'm having a hard time finding that date that Counselor Bearable was speaking of or discussing. I think it was stated, though, that the bond the bond expires, or the lease payments expire December 31st. That was pretty specific in there. But I guess the point that I'd like to make is I don't feel like we're pressing anyone. I feel like this has been, the language has been in this contract. We, well, actually, Britt sent the letter with Tom, I think, in 2018. Is that correct? That this was, I mean, these conversations should have been taking place. And I mean, we can't go backwards. I understand that. We need to go forward. But there is language in the contract. And the reason that it was put in the contract is to preserve a city asset and to make sure that necessary improvements were going to and are going to be made in infrastructure, regardless who that tenant is. But the tenant agreed that they would continue, and then at year, I believe, between years 9 and 11, an additional $15 million. So that's stated black and white in the contract that Essentia has always known about. So I think that's a little bit of a frustration point to me. The other point that I'd like to make is when they acquired the Yonkers building in Duluth, I'm sure they paid a hefty price for that, and it does have a private workout area in that facility. So I'm not sure why that asset is more important in the city of Duluth than our asset is in the city of Virginia, and that is frustrating to me. I feel that that building, that land is an asset. I know we were told that they feel that it is not an asset. I suppose I can't comment on that, but I guess what I feel like is it's stated plainly in the agreement. We are doing our due diligence to follow the agreement so that the city is not in breach of that agreement. We can pull back within that 2 months if there's other information that comes forward, and I'm comfortable with that, but I'm not comfortable doing nothing. So that's kind of where I stand. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. Counselor Freely, and then on to Counselor Bearable.
So Britt, correct me if I'm wrong. It appears that we could make a motion to authorize city staff to proceed with the hospital lease revenue bond 2020 and engage Northland Securities to act as the underwriter as of January 13th, 2020. And that buys us some time and is not negative in any fashion towards what we're trying to accomplish in the long run.
No, we'll just add 2 weeks onto our timeline, but
Okay. Then, given the information that's been provided to us, whether private or public or not, and the conversation that has ensued since, I would go ahead and make a motion that we authorize city staff to proceed with the hospital lease revenue bond 2020, commencing on January, 13th? That's acceptable?
That is your motion.
I would make that motion.
Is there support? Is there support? Is there support? Motion fails for lack of a second. Just a reminder that, there's no lease payment after January 1, so whatever time that is, there's no payment being made. So 2 weeks is 2 weeks, but I don't think it has a significantly adverse effect because there's no payment plans beginning January 1 anyway. Counselor Bearable?
My question is, if we go through and we activate the bond situation, you heard essential people told us here it's fruitless to put $10 million into this hospital at this point in time. It's so cut up, so messed up. Emergency room, they can't expand. They've had a study on that. They can't expand it because of the structural situation of the hospital. Why would we want to put money to them and force them to make a payment, and if they decide to back out somehow, we're stuck with paying a bond? Because you're not going to get a bond that you can turn back around and pay it off right away. You guys have been around long enough that you got, before you can reissue or defease a bond, you got to have so many years in that bond. Why would we put ourselves at that risk right now without first talking to Essentia and getting them even another closed meeting with them? Think about that. I don't want to put myself at risk for that as a city councilor, because that could happen. So, because there are dates and times, and you may not be able to turn a bond over for 6, 7 years, whatever the time frame is that they allow you to redo them, or you got to defease it, and if you got to defease, you got to pay off the balance in some form or manner. So we've done that once before with the city.
Yeah, thank you, Counselor Bearable. Counselor Johnson, and then Counselor Beyondich.
A question, so if we move forward with the bond, we can table each one of those resolutions as we move forward to extent, once we start the bond process, it isn't a guaranteed 2-month process. So I guess my point is we start the process today, and then if we get to the 13th and things have happened, we table the next proceeding for another 2 weeks. And so we can draw this out, but that puts us in the driver's seat instead of letting Essentia be the ones dictating to us the timeline. And so with that, I will make a motion to authorize city staff to proceed with hospital lease revenue bond 2020 and engage Northland Securities as the underwriter effective immediately.
Motion by Counselor Johnson to move forward to authorize city staff to proceed with the hospital lease revenue bond 2020 and engage Northland Security to act as an underwriter effective immediately. Is there support? Is there support?
I'll support that, Mayor.
Support by Counselor Barnzelli for further discussion. Any further discussion with respect to this?
Mayor?
Counselor, first Counselor Barnzelli and then on to Counselor Bearable.
If we don't do something, what will we do? Counselor Bearable, what would you do? Give it to them for $1?
Absolutely.
We would be laughed out of this town
No,
by
we
the
would not be.
taxpayers.
We would not be laughed out of this.
Counselor Bearable?
I wasn't even going to talk about that. Carl, you got to look at the future and the long-term viability, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. They've already stated that they're going to probably build a new hospital here in the future. They have not lied to us about what they put into this facility from the time we put that agreement. Some of the things have not happened perfectly, but they have still put the dollar bills into the whole situation. My question was, Britt, will we have any costs with Northland Security when we start this process to begin with? No. We shouldn't, should we? Okay. I'm still not going to vote for it, but the rest of the council can.
I like the motion that Counselor, whatever, is going. I think we've got to do something. But if we advertise this building, wouldn't you think maybe Fairview would want to come over here? Is Hibbing the one that manages here? They own Fairview? Well, I can't see giving it to them for $1. $1, 4 quarters is what they're going to pay for that?
Carl, you didn't listen to what I said. They've already paid for it. $29 million if you go back and look at the numbers.
We got $20 million from them?
$29 million. 12 they put into it in assets and stuff. They paid another 17 in bonds that we would have had to come out of our coffers if they weren't paying those bonds. with the money that they leased. So that's where I'm coming from. I think they've already paid for it, personally.
Do you have any further questions, Sir Counselor Bearable?
Thank you.
Oh, sir, he had a question for you. You had to answer it, right? Okay, so now Counselor Beyondich.
Well, since we're making a lot of motions here that are failing, I'm going to throw another one out there.
Well, we have one on the table now. We do have one.
I will have another one.
Okay, that's fine. But we have a motion on the floor from Counselor Johnson and supported by Counselor Barnzelli to authorize city staff to proceed with the hospital lease revenue bond 2020 and engage Northland Securities to act as the underwriter effective immediately. And so that's moved and supported. Let's discuss that one first, and then we'll go to your next motion. Is there any further discussion with respect to that? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Roll call, please.
Friedli. Paulson.
Yes.
Beyondich. Johnson.
Yes.
Aaronzelli. Duffy.
Yes. Motion passes. Was it?
Have to-
Oh, I'm sorry. Counselor Bearable. Sorry. No. Motion passes 4-3 because it's not a spending item, right? It passes. Okay, so right now that passes 4-3 moving forward. And now, Counselor Beyondich, you had another motion you'd like to make?
Not necessarily a motion, since this one went through, but is there a way for us, and I know it's another meeting, but is there a way for us to have a meeting with Essentia again fairly quickly? I'll make a motion, we have a meeting on Monday morning at 8 a.m. to meet with Essentia so we can get the information to make a decision.
Yeah, I won't be available Monday morning at 8 a.m., but the rest of the council could be. We don't have time to post either, so.
When would be the quickest? I'll make it for Thursday.
Yeah, I won't be here. It's the day after Christmas, so you can all come here, but I won't be here, so.
I'm just trying to get us
But,
together.
You make a motion for the Thursday, the 26th? Okay, motion by Counselor Beyondich to make that motion to have us ask for a closed meeting with Essentia on Thursday, the 26th. Whether they'll be available or not, we don't know, but that's the motion, and it's supported by Counselor Johnson. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Johnson.
I think that gives them the opportunity to do what Counselor Baraboo has asked, that we meet with them individually, which is, I don't like that, so I would rather have them. And if they can't make it, to me, that's an indication of their unwillingness to move forward on our terms also. So I'm comfortable with trying to meet on Thursday.
Yeah, and I appreciate the motion, I understand the reason for it, but this is an important matter, and I think every voting member of this body should have the opportunity to just weigh in. And when I have a scheduling conflict and I can't, I find that discerning and disconcerting. So, cool, it's moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Paulson.
I won't be able to attend on that.
Yeah, so, yeah, I just wait to, right after Christmas. Counselor, thank you, Counselor Paulson. Counselor Friedli.
Will be out of town on that.
Okay, so that's 1, 2, that's 3 of us so far. So it's been moved in support. Further discussion, Counselor Bearable.
Why not move it to, what's the difference of a couple days later to Monday the 30th, before New Year's? Is everybody going to be around then?
I would be fine with that. I feel the urgency to meet with them so we can clarify.
I do too, Maya.
Okay,
Don't get me
thank
wrong
you.
with all my rhetoric that I've had at this meeting. I want you folks to meet with them.
Right, right. So, and I guess it can be whenever everybody can be here, because I appreciate that, it's right after the holidays and a lot of people are traveling and having family. So as soon as we could, I would agree to whatever date that is, 8 o'clock in the morning, so we can discuss this.
Okay, well, it doesn't have to be at 8 in the morning, but I guess that's your motion. But there is a motion on the floor right now for 8 o'clock in the morning on Monday, December the 26th. I'm sorry, Thursday, I apologize, Thursday, December 26th. So it's moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? No. Roll call, please.
Paulson?
No.
Beyondich? Johnson?
Yes.
Zelli? Huffy?
No.
Baraboo? Freedly?
Yeah, I'm not available too on the 26th, so. Okay, motion fails, 4-3. Do I have another motion?
Well, I'd ask the question, Mayor, if I might. Is there availability before the next committee of the whole meeting in January, or is that the meeting we invite them to?
Probably do it before the next committee, the whole, a one-topic meeting would probably be a really good.
And I'm comfortable with the 30th. It's just the 26th, I won't be here, so.
I would make a motion for 30th. And I would say 9 a.m. to give city staff time to recover after the long weekend and make sure we have everything.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor by Counselor Johnson to invite Essentia to a special closed meeting to discuss the hospital lease scheduled for 9 a.m., tentatively scheduled for 9 a.m. on, is that Monday?
Monday the 30th.
December 30th at 9 a.m. Is there support?
I'll support.
Support by Counselor Paulson. Is there any further discussion? Is there anyone who can't be here then? Well, okay. Well, we have the motion now in support, so we could rescind. Who made the motion?
Seventh?
Yes. So we could meet.
Yeah, before we make these motions, with all due respect, we should make sure all the councilors are going to be here for these. These are very important meetings too. So throw out a date that none of us can be at, or some of us can't be. We should find a consensus really. So, but right now there's a motion on the floor to set the date for 9 a.m. on the 30th of December, which is a Monday. And will the maker of the motion like to rescind that, or should we move forward with the vote?
Can you do 8 a.m. that day, Maya?
I would be happy to do. I guess the reason I made a motion is because then it's in the record and it's, it is,
You modify to 8 a.m.?
but I'm seeing nods that that's not going to work at 8 a.m. is a few of us have children to manage during Christmas break, so that becomes a challenge.
Well, there's a motion on the floor for Thursday, December 30th, I'm sorry, Monday, December 30th at 8 a.m. Is there any further discussion? 9 a.m., okay. All right, let's redo this again because this is really
I'll rescind the
ridiculous.
motion to make it a little less
Absolutely ridiculous. Okay,
Well,
well,
with all
what's
due
that?
respect, Mayor, I don't think it's ridiculous. I think it's what we're doing to try to figure out what's best for the body. So I will rescind my motion, and if we can have a conversation about if there's a day that week, the 30th, 31st, 2nd, or 3rd, that's what I'd like to see. Because the whole point is to get them here, to get the information that not all of us have.
Well, I think that's the point I'm trying to make here. Throw out a motion without knowing anybody else can attend, and we have to vote on that motion after a second. So I think that's the ridiculous part. The part is we should start as an elected body, discuss this important matter, determine, when we can all be here at one time, and then move forward. I don't disagree with you, Councilor Johnson. We have to meet with them as quickly as possible, but we should all be present because this is a very important meeting. That's all I'm saying.
Why don't we, Mayor, if I
So
may
let's
suggest,
find a date that we can all live with.
Mayor, if I may suggest.
We have to vote yet first? Rescind it?
Rescind it, yeah.
And rescind the second? Seconded?
got my
Rescind the
light on.
second?
I will
Okay, there's
rescind.
no motion on the floor. Let's discuss. Thank you, Councilor Johnson. You suggest we discuss this again after the rescinding of the motion. So what would you like to do?
I'd go to the 7th, just a regular committee of the whole, and have that meeting first, and afterwards have the committee of the whole meeting. And another few days isn't going to make that much difference. Just do it on our regular scheduled committee of the whole. Do it first.
Well, my concern about that, Councilor Bergbo, if I may, is that these committee own meetings last a long time. And so they have this essential meeting, which is also going to last a long time. I don't want to start at 9 o'clock in the morning and go on to 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'd like to see us have an opportunity to this is a meeting I think that needs to be discussed
Then you got but then you have New
individually.
Year's, but then you have New Year's Eve in there, people may not be around the 31st. Then you got New Year's, and you got, who knows where people will be after New Year's. People go and do things after holidays too.
Okay,
That's my opinion only.
thank you. Counselor Johnson.
I know that Virginia goes back into session on January 2nd. That would free up my morning. If we did an early morning, Counselor Paulson, is that, if we did an early on the 2nd?
Provided that Essentia can be available.
And that's the other part that could be, they could just say no too.
I'm texting Sam Stoner as soon as we finish this. I have it ready to go, just need to put a date in.
8 o'clock? 8 o'clock, yes. 30, yes.
Okay. Pam?
And we do have a VITA meeting at 8 a.m. on Thursday the 2nd. Maybe 8:30 or 9.
Or later in the day. 4 o'clock?
It doesn't matter to me. I don't care. I can be here on the 2nd no matter what, so. So
Second's a good day for me. I can,
is everybody looking at your schedule? Would you be available on January 2nd? Anybody? Would anybody?
Agenda for January 2nd doesn't appear to be that big, so it'll be a very short meeting if we wanted to do 8:30.
Right, so we could do it on the 2nd if everybody was available to do it that period of time, so
And we'd love to have you all at VITA, so you all can come at 8 o'clock to the VITA meeting if you'd like.
I'll be there for that anyway. So Counselor Beyondich would usually be available on the 2nd.
Yes.
Counselor Johnson.
yes.
Counselor Barnzelli. Counselor Paulson. Counselor Freelieb. Thank you. Right, Counselor Bearable. Okay, so we're all available for Monday. Oh, no, what's it now?
It's my turn again.
Okay, Thursday, January 2nd, at what time? Okay, let's get a motion there. Thursday, January 2nd at 8:30.
I will make that motion.
Or,
Motion by Counselor Beyondich, supported by Counselor Johnson, to hold a special meeting with Essentia, provided that they can be available for Thursday, January 2nd, 2020, at 8:30 a.m. Is that correct? Thank you. Any further discussion with respect to that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, let's move to item 9. We finished with 8.4? Okay. Move to item 9, committee reports. The Personnel Committee that was held right now. Did you want to run through this, or did you want me to?
Sure, Ken. You guys, we had already had the negotiation closed session, and so now I was just bringing to you the approval of the contract with LELS from January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2022.
Okay. Under Personnel 9.1 was moved and supported to adopt a resolution. Well, we are asking to adopt a resolution, We're asking to adopt the resolution approving the contract with Law Enforcement Labor Services, LELS, from January 1, 2020 through December 31st, 2022. As this unit, we all know this is a combination committee of the whole and council meeting. So the committee of the whole, we're bringing the resolution forward for adoption at this meeting.
I'll move the resolution approving the contract with LELS.
Moved by Counselor Johnson to move forward with the approval and adopting the contract between the City of Virginia and Law Enforcement Labor Services from January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2022. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Counselor Paulson. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
We also did bring forward the agreement with International Association of Firefighters, or IAFF, for the contract from January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2022.
We'll move the resolution approving the contract with IAFF.
Counselor Johnson approves the contract moving forward, adopting the resolution to approve the contract with the International Association of Firefighters, IAFF, from January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2022. Is there support? Support by Counselor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Johnson.
I'd just like to say, thank the city staff for, it's nice to see the contracts are being renewed before they expire, and I think that says a lot about what you all are doing and the relationship we have with the unions and the employees, so thank you very much.
Thank the unions for trying really hard also to get something amicably worked out between us.
Perfect. Well, thank you to everybody involved.
Okay, it's been moved and supported to approve the contract between the International Association of Firefighters, IAFF, with the City of Virginia for the contract year January 2020 through December 31st, 2022. It's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion?
No, thank you for holding while I had a duty to do.
All right, yes, further discussion, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries, thank you. Item 9.3 has already been taken care of,
Yeah, that was a mistake on my part. I didn't mean to send Pam that resolution again. So I
That's okay.
apologize, Pam, sorry about that.
but we do have 9.4
Yeah,
now, huh?
9.3, we had already approved at the last meeting. It was the figure skating coaches, which is Jenna, Christie and such. And I apologize, that was a repeat resolution. I did not mean to put in the packet. 9.4 is the one I did want to put in the packet, the junior figure skating coaches, their resolution.
So have we had junior figure skating coaches before?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Brian, Mr. Silber.
We have had junior figure skating coaches in the past. They have not been city employees. They have been paid with gift cards and such, which is not the most legal or ethical way to be treating somebody who is essentially working.
Okay, that makes perfectly good sense. Thank you, Mr. Silber.
I will move the resolution approving the hire of the junior figure skater positions for the city of Virginia.
All support.
Moved by Counselor Johnson to move forward with item 9.4 is the hiring of the junior figure skating positions, and supported by Counselor Baraboo. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't want to put anyone on the spot here, but I did receive some concern about a letter that was going to go out to parents regarding potentially asking parents to give feedback on, sorry, I was just trying to find it, on making Virginia a private skating club. And I'd like to set up maybe a time for that we can talk about that, because the last conversation that we had here as a body was that that was going to be and be maintained as a park and rec program. And if we do go to a private skating club, I would say you're not going to have all the little beginner skaters come forward, which trains a lot of those boys even for hockey or girls for hockey. So I'd like to set up, I know there's a motion, but after that, I'd like to maybe set up a time where we can have that discussion. I don't know if that's coming directly from the Park and Rec Commission, but when we were here, when you were presented last time, we had all agreed that that was a Park and Rec function. So I was a little concerned to see that letter.
So, quick question before we ask you to respond, Brian. So, if this would become a private skating club, we're going to probably talk about that, which is very important for us to do so. Then that means they're no longer city employees. They have their own private club. They pay us for ice time, right? Okay, thank you.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily, Brian. Please continue. Yep. Thank you.
At Wednesday evening's Park and Rec Commission, figure skating was one of many things that we discussed. Looking at the ways to improve the figure skating program amongst other programs. The Park and Rec Commission had the suggestion of our program being recognized by U.S. Figure Skating as a club. Currently, the girls or guys that are participating in our low advanced or high advanced program have to register with the Duluth Figure Skating Club and pay Duluth $130, I believe it is, just for them, and never step on their ice. And so one of the things our park commission was wanting to do is, what can we do to save those parents that $130? So they've asked me to look at the possibility of becoming a club. My suggestion to them was before we do this, that I reach out to the parents that are currently active in our club and gauge their interest as to whether or not this is even something that they want us to be doing. So I'd be happy to read you the draft of the letter that I have, but in several places in this letter, it does say that this is just something we are thinking about, and we want their feedback because this is their program. If we were to become a club, it would require us to do several things. We would have to have a board of directors, which the Park and Recreation Commission has agreed to be that board of directors if nobody else wanted to be it. Ideally, we would want to have the board be people that are involved in the program. But if we don't have the parents that are wanting to do that, and we as a city still want to try and save them that money, our park commission is willing to step up to the plate and bite the bullet to do that. Another thing that being a club allows us to do is it would allow us to let me get the correct term here. For the first year, our club would be listed as an interim or provisional club. As an interim or provisional club, the club would be able to sanction exhibitions, carnivals, and ice shows, and hold test sessions. And all club members would be eligible to compete representing the club. There are two things that we could not do while we were a provisional club: host a qualifying competition or vote at U.S. Figure Skating's annual meetings. I believe it would be a wonderful thing if we were able to host a qualifying competition in Virginia in our new arena in the future. If we're not a club, we cannot do that.
I have two questions for you, Brian, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. That's a great idea to have a club. So my question is, first, is the City of Duluth Park and Rec Department or their...
No.
That's
Duluth
separate.
Figure Skating Club is
Private.
completely separate. They just rent ice.
So-
I've also reached out to USA Figure Skating to see if they have any park and rec programs that are running the club, to see if there is a model that we can follow and we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Like I said, this letter that sending out to parents is just to see if this is even something they want us to be considering doing at this point.
Thank you. And then the other question I have, which relates to what Councilor Paulson has indicated for me, is that, so I think we'd have to have a conversation, and I think we're going to have a motion to do that, and I think it's important that we do. But for me, as part of that discussion moving forward, and just get an answer from you briefly, is that, so say we continue with the Park and Rec program, and we have this Park and Rec program for the figure skaters, and we do what we were doing in the past, and they want to establish a private club on their own. They could do that?
And then they would be exactly like Vaha.
Right, they'd be just like Vaha. That was my next point. Thank you, Mr. Silber. Thank you, Brian. Anybody else have anything? Councilor Baraboo.
Yeah, I agree with the mayor on this, Brian. This would be a tremendous venue for the future because you can have all these competitions with these new ice surfaces that we've got, and you can get some dollar bills out of that too because there's a fee when they come to those competitions. I was good friends with Barb McKee and her husband before, when she was, every time they went someplace to these competitions, it cost money.
Yes.
So I agree, that's a good thought with the new ice arenas.
And all we're doing at this point is considering this and wanting to gather information from our parents.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Paulson, did you want to?
I'm open to having a conversation. I guess I'm just a little bit more concerned going forward with writing a letter, per se, without coming forward here to say, here's what the Park and Rec Commission is recommending, that we do this. As a counselor, getting feedback from the coaches who, after we've had now 2 meetings with, shared no no interest in forming a private club at all because of the costs involved to the skaters. Now, I think it would be amazing to have competitions here. I absolutely agree with that. But it's how do we get there? And I just feel like sometimes when you put those things out there, it's sending a mixed message compared to what we had discussed, even when Abby was here, and Abby and all the rest of the coaches were under the assumption that our council body was in full support of them being a park and rec program. So now when this letter came forward, I think what some of them are feeling is that they have not been asked to be part of that dialogue other than just saying, here's the letter that we're sending out. So I feel like I would have rather have had some of that information come back here so we can say, yep, we want to go that direction, or what is the recommendation, or have you talked to the coaches, or let's have a meeting. And I think that's where I was going after we vote on approving them. So I'm not opposed to anything. I think there needs to be a process going forward so that everybody can communicate properly together.
And I think, I know not to belabor, because we're probably going to have a meeting to discuss this further, but the letter's already been sent out. The parents are getting feedback.
They
No,
have not been
it hasn't
sent out.
yet. so-
I communicated with the coaches that I was planning on sending this letter out. Since I do not have office hours at the same time that the coaches are there, I communicate via writing.
Okay. Oh,
I
so-
gave them a copy of the letter, letting them know that in the very near future, I was going to be sending this letter to the parents. That way they could give feedback to me. I have not heard a thing from any of our coaches since I left that letter for them yesterday. Obviously, Counselor Paulson has heard from the coaches, but they have not come to me, they have not responded to me with any concerns.
And I think maybe, by giving those letters to the coaches, gives them a heads up on what you think might come down the pike, or what Park and Rec is considering, and asking for the feedback from the coaches. That's why you gave them the letter in the first place.
Yes.
Before you send it out. And so by
Correct.
not sending it out, by asking feedback from the coaches, I think it was important to do that. Now, those coaches that said coming to you went to Counselor Paulson, and she's addressing her concerns about that now. But none of the parents got a copy of the letter, only the coaches. You're asking for their feedback from the coaches. I don't think that's an issue. But, I don't think that's, I think that's appropriate method moving forward. But coming to us, which we have now, is for us, we're going to be voting on the junior figure skating thing. And then if we want to discuss this other part further about of the club, I think it's important to get feedback from everybody. But seeing as you haven't sent the letter out already, only the coaches are taking a look at to give you your feedback. I think it's prudent as employees of yours to get their feedback. And then once you get their feedback, you come back to us before you send the letter out. That just makes sense. So, okay, thank you. It's been moved and supported to hire the junior skating coaches. Is there any further discussion on that part? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Any more discussion with that, Councilor Paulson?
I guess with that, I'd like to just make another motion that our next committee of the whole is the 7th. Is it going to be a really big
I don't know, Pam, do you have,
big agenda? Could we maybe add that? I'd like to make a motion to add that to the agenda, and that we invite the coaches and maybe the parents. I don't know, or would that be too premature? Maybe just the coaches and maybe some of the Park and Rec Commission to kind of get some of their feedback of where they came up with that direction and how we could possibly work together to do something, but at least engage with the coaches too. So that's my long motion.
Okay, is there support? Support by Councilor Johnson. Further discussion quickly for me is that I think you've done within your authority to do this. So for us to talk about it, I would like to see, and hopefully they'll have all that information back by the time this meeting is set for the next, but for you to get feedback from the coaches. Now, you're not getting any feedback from the parents because no parents got a copy of this letter.
Correct.
So you have Park and Recreation that made this suggestion. That's what they're there for, to advise and recommend, and that's what they did. They've advised and recommended to you. You've taken upon that advisory and recommendation to draft a letter based upon that and giving it to the coaches for them to consider. I think that was appropriate to do. So now we're going to discuss this, and hopefully you'll get that feedback from the coaches prior to this meeting. And so by bringing Park and Rec and the coaches together, we can, come up with some kind of a plan moving forward, or find out what they're going to be doing. So,
And at this point,
right?
we are only in a fact-finding
Right.
mode. We're not making recommendations that we are moving in a direction or anything. We are gathering information.
Very good. Thank you, Brian. Okay, so it's been moved and supported to add the discussion about the figure skating club program, and to invite Park and Rec commissioners and the coaches moving forward. After you get your feedback, Brian, hopefully you'll have more information to come together as a collective. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Johnson.
Are the head coaches for this figure skating invited to Park and Rec meetings?
Park and Rec commission meetings are open to the public.
Maybe,
And they have been invited in the past. From what I was told at Wednesday's meeting, they've been invited multiple times in the past and have not come. I have not invited them to any meetings, so I cannot say that they're opposed to coming at all. However, during the winter, our meetings are also during practice, so it would not be conducive for them to come.
I guess that would be something, as having served on Parks and Rec, that for your consideration, is if that's something specific to skating or to baseball, it comes up on an agenda, they get like we do for ours, they get a specific invite, whether or not, it's up to them to figure out how important it is for them to be there. But I guess that might be something that might help alleviate this, the feeling of not including, by saying, okay, we are going to be, this is going to come up that we know of, and please be aware, and you're welcome to attend to put your input. That might be helpful.
And another part of the letter that I was sending to parents, the second to last paragraph, was informing all the parents in our figure skating program that our Park and Recreation Commission has commission openings that are filled every year in January. We currently do not have anybody who has previously had any children in the program or currently has any children in the program. And I was encouraging any parents to reach out to me if they had an interest in serving on our Park and Recreation Commission, because I would like to have a figure skating presence on our commission.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. So it has been moved and supported to invite to the next committee of the whole meeting some more information and dialogue about the club concept, and invite Park and Rec and figure skating coaches to further discuss moving forward. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, Councilor Barnzelli.
Thank you, Mayor. Counselor Paulson, I'm the liaison to the Park and Rec Commission, and they meet on the third Wednesday at 4:30. I will contact you at the beginning of that week. It'd be good if you could, all of us could come to that. It'd be great. Then we would get a head start, but like Brian says, it's just the beginning of it. We're starting it to roll now. So, but you and I,
Yeah, we're likely going to have that committee of the whole meeting before your next commission meeting, so.
Yes.
okay. Yeah, all right. Well,
Thank you, Councilor Barnzelli. Okay, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Silber. Brian? Okay,
Next item on the agenda is approve the letter of understanding between City of Virginia and ASME Local 454 for the Evelyn, Virginia Airport Authority Secretary Bookkeeper.
question.
In your packet, there is a letter of understanding that was presented to us by ASME as Chris started taking over the duties of the airport secretary October 1st. The draft job description's in there. We did try to hire somebody. We went through the whole process. The two people that we were looking at did not pass the background check. Ended up starting all over again, scratching our heads, and we went to both of our prospective cities, Jackie from Evelyn and myself, and said, who do we know that might have time to do some agendas and bookkeeping? So we had Chris trained October 1st. She sat down with the bookkeeper that was leaving,
Right?
got trained, and now asked me to come forward and said, we think she's doing duties above and beyond her normal duties. She should be paid extra for doing this. The one good thing on this is that the Airport Commission pays us $700 a month for Chris to do this work. So if we were to give her this additional funds, it'd be zero out of our pocket because the airport pays us $700 for Chris to do the additional work.
But in the job description, it says $23 an hour,
That's exactly what we were trying to hire for,
yeah?
and we gave this to Chris knowing that she's not going to make an additional $23 an hour while she's working at the airport. She makes her normal wage right now.
So the letter of understanding,
Is asking that we give her an extra $250 an hour. This is not uncommon. We pay Wendy extra $250 an hour for doing Vita.
right, so, but that was the $250 an hour, that's added to her regular hourly salary plus $250 when she's working at the Virginia Everett Airport.
They're asking for it all the time, which comes out to be about $500 a month. And we're already getting paid $700 a month from the airport.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for the clarification, Britt.
Sherry and I discussed this at great length before she left.
All right, Counselor Paulson. Is this, I'm sorry, is this a new position? An AFSMI?
No, this is not a position asked. This would be a stipend for her to act in these duties.
This is an addendum as a stipend. Thank you. I'm sorry,
Similar to
Counselor
what
Paulson.
Wendy gets for working on Vita, and with the library, the person that does the IT gets an extra $1 an hour. So we've done this letters of understanding previously.
I apologize.
okay.
Counselor Paulson.
I guess I'm feeling that this should be a personnel committee topic to get some more information. I don't know when these job descriptions went out, is there a paper trail on that? Like no one applied or?
We do have that, yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd like to have a little bit broader discussion. And then also, just to understand what the actual role is, that would make me feel more comfortable rather than just voting on something without kind of understanding the background of it. So I'd like to maybe have a little bit further discussion on that.
So you would likely, if I may, make a motion to table this until we can hold a personnel, or refer this to a personnel committee
I'll
meeting?
wait until, if other people want to have
Okay.
a conversation,
Very
that's
good.
fine.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. Counselor Freely.
I would concur with Council Paulson, being a member of the Personnel Committee, just for having further clarification with regard to the position. And in part, like, there's mention that she would be paid overtime for additional hours, and that was
They
little
have
concerning.
They have a
given that-
scheduled meeting once a month, and their meeting's at 5:00. And so that's what they're referring to, that when she goes to those meetings, that she would be paid overtime to work there, which she would anyway, but
All right. Anyhow, I just have some further questions with regard to the arrangement. It's good to know, though, that the money is being reimbursed by the Airport Commission. That's helpful. And by my math, it was about $400 a month.
taxes.
Oh, okay. All right.
And we threw it, and I told Sherry, I calculated from here to the airport once, twice a month, maybe $13. It's not, mileage is not a huge cost, but
But the $700 covers the costs that we're intending to pay.
yep.
Yeah, and I kind of concur. I don't necessarily believe that there should be a personnel committee, the whole meeting for this topic. A lot of topics, I think it is the case, but whether it's a personnel committee or a committee whole, I have no questions with that. But I think bring it there, I think is important to do so. Counselor Bearwood, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just had a comment before they go to vote on this, if they're going to be a motion. I went to the last West Virginia Airport Commission meeting, and Chris was doing the minutes and doing the informational things, and things came up that would be very beneficial to the Airport Commission and costs and stuff with things that we can do as a joint powers committee. A couple of things were equipment buying. They hadn't been using the state bid process, so that would save money from the joint process. And I happened to be there and mentioned that, and Chris concurred with that. She did a really fine job doing the work at that meeting. It lasted 2 hours, so you're talking 2 hours worth of a time additional. And that was a long meeting, they told me afterwards.
And I think it's prudent for us to move forward with this, but I think it's also prudent to discuss it at a personnel committee meeting. So I think I'm looking for a motion potentially to maybe refer this to personnel just for additional clarification. Counselor Paulson?
Can I make a motion if I'm on that committee?
Yes.
Okay, I guess I'll make a motion to refer this topic to the committee, and I'm certainly fine with it being a committee of the whole, personnel.
Could we add that to the next committee of the whole meeting under personnel?
That sounds fine to me.
That makes sense?
And then everybody can be present.
Yeah,
Yep.
very good. Thank you, Counselor Paulson. Is there support for that? Support by Counselor Freely. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
And the next item, 9.6, under Buildings and Grounds, is approve the location of the Miners Event and Convention Center and to notify the leaseholder of plans for construction. We have verbally notified the school that we are planning to build the miners on the Owens Field, but we need approval from the council that we are going to build on Owens Field, and we need to notify the school officially with a letter stating that we are going to not allow any use of that facility after April of next year.
Britt, I think this is going to warrant some
Discussion.
a little bit of discussion here.
We are
So-
live.
Yes, but could we take a break?
Yes, we are live, so we'll have to let Bill know that.
Yeah, Bill, we'd like to take a quick break for bathroom break, et cetera, just a few minutes. So
What we normally do, Bill, is we just shut off the microphones and leave everything running.
okay, can you shut the microphones off for us?
I'll show you.
Okay, we'll take care of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and then once we will resume the council meeting. We're just taking a short break for a restroom break. Did you ever watch a county board meeting?
Yep, we're good.
Okay. Okay, let's reconvene the council meeting. And for the general public's edification, we took a little bathroom break. We'll continue on with the rest of the agenda. Where are we, Britt?
Number 9.6, approve the location of the Miners Event and Convention Center and notify leaseholders of plans for construction in 2020.
Okay.
We have Brian Silver, our Park and Recreation Director here.
Brian, once again.
Good morning again.
Good morning again.
At this point, we have verbally let the school and school board know that we will be doing construction of the new Miners Memorial Event and Convention Center on top of the current Ewens Field, but we do need to provide them something in writing, so would like to have a council action in order to do that. Our most recent construction schedule, provided by our construction manager, shows that we will be mobilizing to commence site demo on April 13th of this coming year. So now I have asked them repeatedly to confirm that we are on track for that we're on schedule for that, and that will be a reality, because what we will end up doing by starting demo of Ewens Field in April will be force the school district to relocate their spring track program to another location. The response that I have gotten from them is we can bump that back, but that bumps the entire timetable back. And so do we want to make the decision to allow track one more season at Ewens Field? In doing so, that would all but guarantee that the 2021 hockey season would have to be delayed.
Council Baraboo.
I'm going to make a motion right off the bat that we notify the school district of the date on the construction of the Miners Convention and Center of this date of whatever it is, the 13th of April.
April 13th.
Yeah, I don't think we should delay on this at all. It's too important.
Thank you, Councilor Baraboo. Motion by Councilor Baraboo to move forward with the resolution. Approve the location of the Miners Event and Convention Center, notify the leaseholder of the plans for construction. Scheduled for April 13th demo, 2020. Is there support?
I'll support with just quick
Yes,
discussion.
support
that-
for discussion. Councilor Freely.
Has there been any conversation with Josh Lampa with regard to what's already currently scheduled for the spring, like in terms of big meets that might already be scheduled there and what alternatives they'd have?
At this point, my last discussion with him is he had not scheduled anything yet and was waiting to see where we were going. They do have two options of area tracks that they can go to. Eveleth does have a track. It is not a good track. Hibbing also has a track, and Masabi also built a track with their new facility.
I think Chisholm has an all-purpose track too as well. That's even closer yet, but.
So
just
there
as long
are
as there's
some options for them to do for this coming year.
Yeah, and those conversations can be had before they get this letter that says, guess what, you can't use the
Yes.
facility. Okay, thank you.
And I think that the school is well aware of these plans moving forward. There's been discussions at the planning meetings, discussion with the school, at all the open houses, with the school officials, both school boards, that they're aware that this is going to happen. They're just waiting for the notice, and they're requesting it in writing. Okay, thank you. Councilor Johnson?
I would then ask the question about everything else that the school contracts for next year's hockey season. Do we need to do notification for both Virginia Public Schools and their use of the facility and the use of the baseball fields by the school, by the schools? And I mean, are those
Nothing
things?
inside the current minors will be affected next school year or next year. Same with the baseball field. They will both remain 100%.
That'll be future discussion. And then my other question will be is how will the demolition at Ewens Field affect the parking that exists as it currently exists, and what plans are being made for that?
It will make parking very challenging. So they will, more than likely, part of the parking lot will be used as a staging area during construction. So for the next year and a half, parking around the miners is going to be very challenging. Our neighbors are going to see an increase in street parking. Thankfully, this is just short term.
My question is, why can't we use the empty field to the west as staging and access?
It will be used also as part of the staging area.
Can we ensure that's the primary?
We can make that request,
I mean,
yes.
I'm just looking at the whole idea and looking, and it's not part of this specific discussion, but the discussion has been had that we're not going to do anything on the west side of the building because it's not in the budget, but they're going to do everything on the east side, including all this demolition stuff. Well, if we're going to be utilizing space, let's utilize the west where it's not going to affect anybody. Let's utilize that. And then by nature, that area then becomes usable in the future more so than trampling on the parking lot. And I just, as we move forward, those are some things that I really would like to see us discuss when it comes to what's easiest for the construction and what's most practical for the city. I think we need to have a discussion about what our needs are as opposed to what our contractors' wants are.
And I think to some degree, we've discussed that. I've been to a lot of these miners' MEC meetings, and I've been to the public meetings, and I've discussed it with them. The goal and objective here from the city's perspective is to make sure that when the contract begins, in the concerns that you have, Councilor Johnson, that, construction is going to create a temporary problem, just like the county building did. However, as you indicated, Brian, it's temporary. However, the goal and objective is to minimize as much as possible the impact on the facility, the impact on the community, the impact on the residential properties, but there's going to be adjustment that needs to be made in order to facilitate this brand-new facility. So asking for a certain area to be primary mobilization and staging to try to minimize the impact on the community, I think is prudent. And I also think it's part of the discussion. And it's already, being considered as a recommendation, not only as a recommendation, but as a mandate. And I think Councilor Jones asking for that to be, let us know that they've agreed this is going to be the primary. But I just think that it's going to happen. There's going to be some impact on parking. There's no other place to mobilize. And, in the spring when it's all wet, to try to mobilize in those fields are going to create a myriad of problems. So there has to be some, common sense judgment onto how they stage that area. And I think they're going to go stay that with minimizing the impact as much as possible on the public. I think I made that comment early on, but to make sure that, we cross the T's and dot the I's, put the P's at the end, as Councilor Johnson is asking for, would be prudent. Councilor Bearable, and then on to Councilor Freely, and then Councilor
That
Paulson.
was going to be my comment somewhat, that west side with heavy equipment and rain and everything else, you're going to have a quagmire of mud there that it's going to cost us more money if we mobilize there, because the contractor's going to get some delays from all that when they have to construct and do stuff in the rainy part where they can be doing it off of an asphalt surface. And I'm really concerned that that'll tear up that west end so bad that you won't be able to handle it. I know what happened to me this year at my hunting shack. Could hardly get in there with the mud and stuff that's created, and that is not a solid surface, that extra field back there. So I'm concerned about it. I want to see the staging, and parking will be inconvenient, yes, but there aren't a ton of events in the summer months compared to what we have in the fall, and once it freezes up, then there's a different story.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Freely?
Just a quick heads up too, I just remind myself that there's an annual track and field day for the elementary school as well, that they're gonna
Yes.
have an alternative site, so let the administration know.
And I know you've been working very closely with the school about this. There's been discussions about their programming and how that's going to affect it, knowing that, that this is going to be the, probably the date that they're going to move forward, that they've been well aware of it for months and are making plans to ensure an alternative method of providing those sporting events. And they're just looking for a formalized document in order so they can move forward with their alternative plans. Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much. We get the regular MEC updates, so I kind of feel like I'm following along a little bit. Are those also discussed at Park and Rec meetings
Yes.
a lot? Have we been getting those minutes from Park and Rec? Because I don't,
Not Park and Rec, but we're getting all the MEC minutes.
I get the MEC, but I mean, like with the school, I wouldn't have known that. So is that in Park and Rec minutes, and can we receive the minutes for Park and Rec? I haven't had
Yeah,
any.
I've got copies of all the minutes, so,
Can we maybe get those on a
Parks
monthly?
and Rec Commission
Yeah.
I don't,
have not received any.
okay, I can get that updated to you.
Yeah, in answer to Councilor Paulson.
I'm sorry to, I don't mean
No,
to.
please continue.
Say
Yep,
anything,
yep.
I just, it's helpful for me to read through, so I kind of can follow along where you guys are at. But just like you said, you wouldn't have really thought about that for the other schools, the track and field days. So there's a lot of planning and pre-planning to do here. So I appreciate being kept updated on what's going on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion and support moving forward? Okay, is there any further discussion? Councilor Barnzelli?
Counselor Paulson, there again, I will remind you for the meeting on the third week in Wednesday of each month. If you want, I will pick you up and bring you back. But it's very interesting. I mean, and then when it comes to us as a whole, we know what's going on. Because there's a lot of things that I don't grasp, if you know what I mean.
And our meetings are just as short as the committee of the whole meetings.
Yep, they're 3 hours long. Yep. Well, there might be one issue that's discussed for a half hour, right? But, yeah, so,
Multiple issues for a half hour.
yeah. Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Any further discussion before we vote? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Brian.
The next item on the agenda is we have an offer on the vacant lot at 322 8th Street South. We recently tore down the house that was fire damaged there. We got this lot on a gift from Wells Fargo. Quite the gift. So the adjacent neighbor wants to purchase the lot to put up a fence so that if you drive by the house, the neighbor's got a camper and some other things in his back behind his house. We'd like to be able to use the side yard to store his stuff.
And the resolution is for the sale and transfer for how much?
$300.
$300. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve that resolution for sale and transfer.
Thank you. A motion by Councilor Freeliep to approve the sale and transfer. Is there support? There's support by Councilor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed. Motion carries.
The next item on the agenda is adopt the resolution for purchase of juniper bushes at the Alcott Fountain. Brian, again. Sorry, Brian.
Jam-packed.
Me again.
Nice to see you.
Yes, it's been a long time. As part of Phase 3 of the fountain restoration project, the Fountain Committee wanted to see juniper plants planted around the fountain again, like they had been historically, in between the two layers of the boulders around the fountain as it is recessed down into the ground. So we have measured out and figured out about how many junipers we needed. So we did an RFP for 120 juniper plants that would all be Zone 3 compliant, which is what we need. And we put that RFP out so that we could get the request for proposals. We had 5 different proposals that came in. Several of the greenhouses and contractors did contact me and ask me a couple of questions. The most prevalent question was, what size plant do you want? Because they all wanted to put their bid together with 2-gallon pots. And the 2-gallon pots are the smallest ones, the plants are the smallest, and it would take a couple additional years for the plants to grow, take hold, and fill in that area. So I was requesting from all of the contractors 5-gallon pots and told them that if they wanted to, they could give us an alternative of 2-gallon pots. So you do have a listing of the proposals that came in and the prices. Took this to the Fountain Committee meeting at the beginning of this month, and they recommended that we go with Range Landscaping and their proposal for 5-gallon plants. All of this work will be completed before the end of June of this coming year.
Thank you. I have one question before I go to Councilor Freely. Once these are planted, you know, what is the time it takes to maintain those juniper plants once they've fully grown?
They are a perennial and they are just a creeping, so maintenance will be little to none on the junipers themselves, maybe just some trimming of them on an annual basis.
Thank you, Brian. Councilor Freely.
So the junipers are not those plants all over town that have been annihilated by that kind of rust-like blight you've seen?
Those are cedar.
They're cedar?
Yes.
Okay. All right, that's what my concern was, that we would get hammered by that, but.
Thank you. Councilor Johnson.
My question was about maintenance. My concern is that, one, they're gonna get walked on and broken because they're in between there, and then how do we keep them trimmed so they look?
These are all creeping junipers, so they don't grow up, they grow out and they intermix again with each other. And to a certain extent, they can withstand people stepping on them. Obviously, not a pathway, but if little Tommy or little Susie runs up the hill and steps on it, they're not so fragile that they will break. They can withstand a child or even an adult stepping on them.
Comes out of the fountain funds?
This comes out of the Phase 3 fountain funds, yes.
Because it's on our property, we have to approve.
Right. I will move approval of the recommendation of the Rec Commission.
Fountain Committee.
Fountain Committee, pardon me, for a purchase of 125-gallon juniper bushes.
Motion by Councilor Johnson and supported by Councilor Barnzelli to approve the request by the Alcott Park Fountain to go with a bid of Range Landscape to provide 125-gallon pots.
120 5-gallon pots.
Thank you. Okay, motion and support. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Bearable.
Is there any warranty guarantee if the winter takes
Plants
them
come
out?
with a 1-year warranty.
Warranty, so that's what I wanted to make sure, because we saw on Highway 53 where all those died and they had to replant. So, okay, that's all I wanted to know.
And we also do have a water supply down there, so for the first year, we can be watering them so that they don't go into shock and that they can become established. So first year, we will probably have a little bit more maintenance involved with them, but long-term, these are low-maintenance plants.
Thank you, Brian. And moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks again, Brian. Okay.
Number 9.9 is a review of the request by the joint school boards for the conveyance of land in Progress Park. And this is coming from now that they are working, the county has been making them plat the area before we can sell it. So when the county was reviewing the plat, they said, or the proposed plat, they said there are some roadways that the city had platted in there. So if you look on your map, there's 3 spots that were platted for roadways. So They never were built. They do have utilities in them, so we would retain them as utility easements, but the school is asking that we agree to convey those paper roads to them as part of the project.
And that's within the property.
If you look at the map, they abut right up against Spectrum's
Right, I mean, yeah.
building
Yeah,
on
right,
the
right.
top side to the parcel that we just sold to them with this meeting.
Yep.
You can see how it was intended for road access to future development,
Hmm.
but now that we've sold the entire land to them, there's really not a lot of use by us that we would need them.
And I was looking at some old documents my father had when he was on the city council, showed the roadway from Morgan Road into there,
Right.
to the bridge and the whole deal,
Eventually, that was planned that. you
right?
could
That's
connect
what was
Morgan
planned
Road
many,
into
many
that.
moons ago,
Correct, correct.
when I was like 8 years old or something like that. Maybe older than that. Okay, thank you. Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Maybe this is the question you already asked, but in the parcel that we just sold them,
Yep.
these are included in that parcel?
It was not. That's why we need to do this, this motion to,
So how much acreage is there?
less than an acre.
Less than an
Yeah,
acre?
it's,
Okay.
one's a 30-foot road, one's a 66-foot road, and the other's the triangular piece. I'm not sure that size actually, but it's not very large.
It looks so large on the,
Yeah, it's
That's why
they're
I was-
roadways, if you think about it. And our normal alley width is 30 feet, our roadway is 66. So that's, number one was 66, number three was 30.
okay, thank you for that
Yeah.
clarification.
It was an oversight on our part when we were doing the conveyance, and we didn't notice it until the county pointed it out to us as they were working through their plat.
Thank you, Britt. Thank you, Counselor Paulson. Any other questions? Counselor Johnson?
Looking at the page to the top of number 1, it looks, is that already taken care of? What would be the rest of that road going up?
We just conveyed that land to the school.
That's already done.
That's already done.
It's okay. I would move that we include these 3 parcels accordingly so that the school can move forward.
Move to approve by Counselor Johnson. Is there support?
I'll support.
Counselor Johnson and supported by Counselor Bearable. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I just want to reiterate too that we will keep the utility easements, but we will vacate the roads. So
And the costs all incurred by the school.
every cost is incurred by the school. All the legal work, all the plating work is being incurred by the school.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 9.10 is a review the letter of support for boundary bill change for property transfer, and in your packet is an email from Alan Larson of the DNR. They are working on the Iron Range OHV Recreation Area Expansion Site, which goes into Virginia. And on the map that I sent, the small piece that is circled in blue was previously owned by the MPCA, and the MPCA would like a letter of support from the city saying that we authorize the DNR taking the land over from the MPCA.
Yeah, with no liability on the part of the city.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I'll move, Mayor, that we send a letter of support that the DNR Boundary Waters or the DNR OH3 Park that be included in that OH3 Park proposal. That's the way to do it, Brett.
Yes, yep.
Motion by Counselor Bearable to approve the letter of support to transfer the land to the DNR from the MPCA, which is in the city limits of Virginia, for property transfer. Is there support? Support by Counselor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion?
Mayor,
Counselor Barnzelli?
you and I went out to a meeting a couple winters ago now,
We did.
and I don't know how you felt, but I thought they were gonna beat us up. Well, they love this, what we see today. They're really happy with this. And
They are.
you've been working diligently on this to get
We
this.
have together as a, and I think it's going to be a good thing.
Yep. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We already taken care of 911.
We did.
Okay, anything else, Britt?
On your desk, I did put a resolution for support of a grant agreement.
And this is really
Because Brian and I
exciting.
are always dreaming. We were thinking about our next trail. Bailey's Lake Trail will be done next year. We started thinking about Silver Lake Trail next, and so we were looking at a grant for fiscal year 2024, which we can access July or August 1st, 2023, for the Silver Lake Trail. And the neat thing about this is we're looking at totally bypassing the utilities and creating a bridge that goes across Silver Lake.
You know, and I think this is a federal funded program, so looking at our local legislators moving forward, that's fine. But on the national level, we need support in that regard, maybe to help push this through. And I think we can use our state representatives at Washington DC to help push this through. Part of our active living, part of our trails connections, part of reducing the carbon footprint, improving traffic and access by bicycles and skiers and everything else. So, Brian, you're always thinking ahead of the game, and so this is a nice find for us to move forward with trying to find this grant, which, federal government takes a long time. So, available potentially in 2023 with the acquisition of the money in 2024. So the resolution is to ask us to move forward and trying to go after this grant.
I'd like to move the resolution forward.
Yes, thank you. Councilor Paulson moves this resolution forward to apply for the grant for this exciting. Is there further support for that? Support by Councilor Freely. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, Commission liaison reports. Anybody have one? Councilor Paulson?
I don't have one, but
Sure.
in going back to the approving of the temporary liquor permits and liquor, did we approve everyone that usually applies? Because this is our last meeting to do, is that correct?
Correct.
So I know there's one downtown that is not renewing, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, and then is it 2/8? They did not. Okay, so I guess my question is, are we getting everyone in?
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, Pam.
So I did receive the last one yesterday afternoon, and that was for Northern Divide. So they submitted their paperwork, and they do have their insurance and all the required documentation. So I do need to submit that to the state, so I was going to ask for approval for that.
You're asking for approval for the Northern Divide liquor application. They've met all the qualifications pending the approval from the state. You're asking us to make a motion to approve that.
On sale on Sunday.
For the on sale on Sunday. Okay, thank you. Well, let's deal with that first, and then we'll talk about the other liquor part issues. So, Councilor Freely?
I see at communications that you were going to meet with staff from Northern Divide with regard to other issues that. So there will be further communications with them with regard to the responsibilities they have towards the cities. But we are not of the mind that we would withdraw or withhold operations from them, or are we in that mindset? I guess I'm of the mind that I would rather see operations veiled up there as they have been, and a corrective action plan of some sort, or financial correction action plan, something that needs to be put in place in some official fashion so that they understand that there are responsibilities that they must uphold in order to be granted the kinds of things that the city is availing to them, such as a liquor license for their property. Thank you.
And I think it's important to continue with that discussion and approve the liquor license moving forward, because if there's a change in the entity, the liquor license has already been paid for. It's an asset that we have, in their discussion portions of it. So, I mean, it's paid for already, and then, so we have the money from them. Whether a new person takes over doesn't make any difference. We still got some money from them. So if we don't approve it, we don't get anything from them, and then the operation suffers. So to your point, Councilor Freely, I think they're a tangent path, but to help them be as successful as possible moving forward, approving this, I think, would be prudent. I agree. Councilor Paulson?
Mayor, what are the state requirements? Is it just like an inspection, or are state requirements for them to to keep or maintain?
Well, go ahead, Pam.
Thank you. No, there are, it's up to the city to approve the on sale and then the Sunday, and then the state approves it, also contingent that they're up to date on all their necessary documentation the state may require. So they have to sign off. The state does sign off on those 2 licenses that I will submit to them. But just for informational purposes, right now, they are on the delinquent sales tax list. So not sure if the state will actually approve it. And there is a possibility that they may not have a license come January 1st, just because of the time frame of getting it in with the holidays now. It may not be approved and back to us by
And the cost, what is the fee for a liquor license?
100 for the Sunday,
The Sun-
1,500 for the on sale, and then there was a late fee of 10% that was also assessed to them.
And that's been submitted? Okay.
As long as there's no felony convictions, as long as they have proper insurance, and as long as we feel that it's a viable entity that will provide liquor in a responsible manner. And so the state approves it based upon that, but when it comes to sales tax, that's their baby. That's their decision to make. So once it's submitted, and as of January 1st, they're likely not going to be able to serve alcohol until we get that back from the state of Minnesota. So they're going to have to, sever any alcohol sales until that gets approved by the state. So I think we have to stay tuned there. Right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you, Pam. Anybody else? Councilor Baraboo?
You just mentioned what I was going to, and Pam has on the first of the year, if they don't have their license on the wall, they can't serve. And we suspended other individual bars when that has happened.
We have.
So just to remind the council, we've done that. So they paid for both, though, the on sale and the Sunday license? Okay.
And they do, every bar gets, every liquor establishment once renewed gets a notice from PAM in November.
Right.
Or when do you send it out?
I sent those out in October, requesting them back by November
Okay,
19th.
there you go. So plenty of time. So thank you, Pam. Appreciate it. Thanks for the clarification. Okay, Councilor Johnson.
Do we need a motion to approve, or did, I guess.
We do.
Okay, I will make a motion to approve as recommended by the city clerk.
Thank you. Moved by Councilor Johnson. Is there support? Support by Councilor Baraboo. Is there any further discussion? Hearing yes, Councilor Freely.
Well, I would certainly support in the event that they communicate with you. I mean, that they answer your communication. I mean, I don't know that we should hold that up, but I mean, I think that should be contingent upon them communicating with you the concerns that the city has with regard to the operations at the business. Does that make sense? Or, I mean, I know you sent a communication, but you're saying they have not gotten back to you yet, but these concerns are legit and necessary to be addressed. And yet at the same time, I guess I know like the golf course runs in deficit every year. And I don't know that the whole time that the restaurant that's been at the golf course, has that ever run in the black? I don't know if it ever has.
The golf course restaurant before Northern Divide did run in the black, except the last 3 or 4 years, they always operate at a deficit because the city paid for everything. In this particular case, the city pays for nothing. We get rent from the current landowner or leaseholder for $3,000 a month. They're behind on that lease. And by not approving this liquor license, it negates their ability to potentially move forward. So by holding them hostage and not providing this, may be considered difficult for them to continue to try to operate. But at the same time, the communication has to keep moving forward with the Wretch and Divide in an effort to try to help them be successful. And if they're not, we have to take the necessary steps in order to accomplish that. But at least give them the opportunity. If they don't, we still have them. The liquor license is still there. Thank you, Brian. Did you have a comment?
Yes, it would also put them in violation of their lease agreement. Part of their lease agreement is that they will maintain a liquor license. So if we don't approve it, we're putting them in violation.
Yeah. We're subjugating the lease, yeah. Thank you, Brian. Good point. Okay, so it's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Counselor Johnson.
I have a question. Once we approve the liquor license, do we as a city have the ability to suspend it temporarily? Should we get to a point where we do not have the communication, we can just say, all right, you have the license, but we really need to talk to you, therefore, for the next 30 days, we're suspending it within the city?
We have to have, I think, if it's a violation of the lease, yes, but I think there's an ordinance that we have that shows that if you have a liquor license, it's good until the end of the year unless you vacate, and then beyond that, after 6 months, right? Is that correct? Well, Pam, go ahead and articulate that licensing section of the agreement.
I don't have the licensing section of the lease agreement,
But
but
I mean,
it is up to the
ordinance.
city
Yep.
to, it's their discretion, the city council's discretion to revoke, approve, or whatever, any
We would have the
licenses.
authority to suspend it if we needed to
Not
get their
a
attention.
privilege to have a license.
Okay, perfect.
So
I
it's
appreciate
up to the
that. Then
sole
I can,
discretion of the council.
I think it's important that we move forward with the understanding that we have that ability to go, now, wait a minute, seriously, it's time to talk to Britt and get their attention that way if we need to.
And just another
Go
point,
ahead.
there has been court documentation on issues that regarding issuance of license, and the councils have won, so in the past. It's not a right to renew a license, not their right that they should have a renewal.
It's it's our decision to make one way or the other. But, it has been moved and supported in this particular case. They're renting a facility from us. Let's do whatever we can to help somebody succeed if they don't. And then we take the necessary action based upon what our authority is. So is there any further discussion before we move forward? Okay, first Counselor Barnzelli, who's been waiting, then Counselor Paulson, and then Counselor Bearable. Thank you. Counselor Barnzelli.
Thank you, Mayor. Their first year in business, they were current, weren't they? I mean, it was great the first year. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Paulson?
I would just like to encourage all of us to go have dinner or lunch at the Northern Divide Eatery.
I tell you, I eat there quite frequently, and the food is tremendous. You got to get the clientele in there, but the food is tremendous. I've heard people say that it's a little higher price, but it's well worth the expense because the food is excellent. Counselor Bearable.
Yeah, just for a little clarification, Steve, the licenses are owned by the city. The business does not own the licenses, so we can do what we want with those licenses, basically, if there's violations, either on leases or on legal violations. So, and we've done that in the past.
Thank you. It's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, I just have one thing I had to add and before we adjourn. I do want to say that our city staff over the year, and we all agree, they've done outstanding work for us. And we wouldn't be in the financial position that we're in. Looking at the budget, 49% of our budget is personnel costs, which is a lot lower than many of the other communities around. We are running a lean operation, but we have very professional staff working for us. And I think we all agree that, we're successful as a city because of how hard our staff works. Our recent hires, the professionalism that they all exhibit, have been extraordinary from my perspective. So I think, it's easy for us to sit back and try to make decisions based upon what we think is prudent, but we can't make these informed decisions as a consensus elected body unless we have the support and the knowledge of our city staff. So I think on behalf, and I'm sure somebody else will want us to pipe in, that this is a phenomenal organization that we have, and we have some great people working for us. I think the citizens of Virginia have shown their support for what we do, and I'm going to just give you one example. Not only the police and fire, park and rec, public works, they do outstanding work. But look at some of the changes that have been made with our park and rec department, with the new park and rec director. Look at the changes that have been made when we gave the authority to a longtime employee with public works to do great work. And look at the improvement in the way the streets are being plowed and the snow is being removed and the proactive approach that they're being taking. And the same thing with how are we generating our grant process and searching for those kind of things, and administrating all the employees through our city administrator, and all the financials and all the information. And we need anything from our city clerk, we get it. We need a question from our budget people, we get it. So we have a staff that works very hard, and I want to say thanks to everybody for that, for all the hard work that you do. And then secondly, to all the city councilors. You know, we argue sometimes, we have differences of opinion sometimes, but we all have and maintain a professional decorum and represent the city in a manner that is professional. You watch other city councilors meetings, you know, I think we do very well. So I want to thank each and every one of you for all your hard work and your dedication throughout the year. And I look forward to working with you for the next year on these very difficult decisions that we have to make, and all the good projects and things we have going on in the community. So I'll stop there and move on to anybody else who has something that they'd like to say. Councilor Johnson.
Mayor, and I had put my light on before you started, so I appreciate what you said and echo that. But I would like the minutes to reflect that some of us are feeling some frustration as we do move forward with the miners design. I was at one of the last meetings bringing up some questions and was told, we're not to that point yet, we're not to that point yet. And I just want to make sure that that my concern is that when we're going to go past that point of the details, and then we're not going to have any input. I think that, and one of those things that, you know, Brian, I know you do an amazing job. One of the things at the last meeting I was very adamant about, and I know some of the staff have been very adamant about, is that there has to be parking on the west side of that building. We cannot park behind the building and everybody walk around to the main entrance. So I just want to make sure that we don't get to a point one day where the architects come here and say, this is the final design, and we have not had that input. And I know where there's an executive committee. When I was there was 4 people, you, 2 Parks and Recs commissioner, and the employee from DSDW. That's fine, but we really need to make sure that we are being heard, and it's not in the budget, to me, is not an acceptable excuse. It's an easy out. I want to see alternatives that help it be in the budget, or what do we do differently? Because the way, what was presented to us today shows a building that faces nothing, and all the parking's behind it, and anybody with any physical limitation whatsoever is going to struggle to get into our building in the wintertime. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is that I'd like to have those meetings scheduled at a time where more of us can be there if we need to be there, so that we are being heard. I'm very concerned that, yep, we hear you, but we're moving forward. We hear you, you're moving forward. And then we're going to get to a point where it's too late. And I've seen that happen, both sitting in this chair, sitting out in the audience, and sitting on other boards and committees, that we are employing DSDW and Isaac Sports Group and Kraus Anderson. They are our contractors. We are the boss. We didn't have a whole lot to say with what was going on over here at the county building and with the parking lot, but this is our building. This is what we want to have done, and we need to figure out how to make it what is ours, and not what a couple of businesses want as their showpiece. And I said that in that meeting, and I will say it here publicly too. We need to know a timeline of when is the time for us to discuss that? When will we have that opportunity as a council to say, no, really, we're fine with the bricks instead of the tiles? Because that seems to be the answer we get repeatedly, and the staff are getting that same feedback. Well, it's not that time yet. We're not there yet. And then all of a sudden there's, well, we already decided that. Well, when is the time? When is the time where I give my input that, we need to have outlets in the floor in the convention center, because when we hold, those are the things that, when I brought that up, I was told we're not there yet. So I need to make sure that I voice that concern, because I know other folks may have that as well. So I wanted to make sure that was in public and on the record. Thank you.
Mr. Wedge and myself were discussing communication with the council here just earlier this week. And one of the things that we are going to attempt to be more diligent at doing is provide the city council with a formal update letter in your committee of the whole packet. We're going to attempt to do that for every committee of the whole so that you know where you are. To answer your question, when is the time? Assuming that we stay on our schedule, which we're being very good at staying on our schedule, we're going to get to a lot of those room details starting January 10th. Right now, we are in a lot of the structural details. In fact, this morning at 8 o'clock, they were having a meeting that I did not attend for the site layout. And one of the topics of conversation was going to be that parking and getting some of that parking on the west side. And how do we do that and still not need to come ask for more money? So those are all things that are going to be happening. Another thing that I can do, if it would please the council, is whenever we are having the executive board meetings or any other meetings, I can send you calendar invites. My only concern with doing that would be if more than a couple of you show up to it, are we placing you in an open meetings law violation? Yeah.
The invite 3 days prior, we'll get it posted.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
Counselor
Thank you.
Johnson, you want to continue? Okay, thank you. Counselor Paulson?
Mayor, I guess I'd like to make a recommendation, if at all possible, that we add in an item like a MEC update on the committee of the whole. And then, voice concerns or voice what you have, just like another part of our agenda, if this is something that is that really important to us as a body, and to make sure that, things are going, maybe just once a month. I don't know what you would want.
Starting mid-January, we are going to be having a lot of the decisions to be making. We're going to be getting into a lot of the nitpicky details of how many outlets, how many breakers do each of these outlets need to be on, what's the color of the floor, what's the color of the wall. So starting mid-January till about the end of February, we're going to have a lot of those decisions to make. So I would foresee us coming before the council on probably every committee of the whole meeting to give an update.
I guess I'd like to make that motion to add that as an agenda item on each committee meeting in committee of the whole meeting in January through February through whenever you need us to discontinue, if that's okay.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor by Counselor Paulson to add a subsection to the committee whole agenda for January, February, March, probably too, or until we get things accomplished, to add a MEC report on the Miners Event and Convention Center update on every committee of the whole meeting as a separate agenda item report. It's supported by Counselor Johnson. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Baraboo.
Yeah, I believe if you request from DWGS that, or whatever the initials are, they will send you the MEC minutes and information, because I get them, and you get them. So that gives you a good update, and if you read them, they're pretty detailed. So I don't know if we need them for every committee of the whole meeting, them to present stuff. It could be on an as-needed basis, but I don't care. The motion can say that, but if they don't have any additional information, there's no sense having them here or bringing stuff to us. So,
They can say that at the meeting then.
yeah, okay.
Okay, that's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion on Counselor Paulson's motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, no other business to come before the council today. We are going to adjourn to Tuesday, January 14th at 5:30 p.m. for the regular council meeting. And this, on behalf, I think I can say this on behalf of the council and our staff, to everyone, happy holidays to all of you. I hope you have a safe and joyful holiday season. And from my family to yours, Merry Christmas. We stand adjourned.